The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
Greetings and welcome to another episode of Bermuda's Feel Good Early Morning Show. Good day, Bermuda. I'm Terri Tuku alongside Jacky Lambert, and we are ready to bring you some feel good vibes this morning. Today's feel good topic of the day, we are going to be discussing the importance of road safety with MP Dennis Lissa III, who is the chairman of Bermuda's Road Safety Council. Our feel good vibe of the day is a celebration of recent graduates and a Bermudian success story. So make sure you stick around to our show to show your love and support for those three Black Bermudian women who are on track to do some amazing things in their life. Before we get into that, as well as our feel good topic of the day, let's see who is tuned in with us this morning so that we can get started with our feel good warm up. Good morning to you, Sean Smith. Thank you, as always, for joining Jacky and I this bright and early on a morning, actually, but Friday.
It's Friday.
It is Friday. Feel Good Friday. We get feel good vibes all day, right? But it's definitely Feel Good Friday today. Now, because we are talking about road safety and we have the chairman of the Road Safety Council on with us today, the question we wanted to ask the audience for the Feel Good warm up is, how has your driving or riding evolved since you first started until now? So let's have a conversation before we talk to the chairman about what are some things we've done in the past that maybe we are not doing anymore, that we've learned from. What mistakes did we make that allowed us to learn this lesson? So we're going to see who else we have in the conversation before Jacky and I get started on that. We have BDA Bliss Women. Good morning to you, Taja. Thank you for joining us. And good morning to Carmen Mitchell-Jones. So let's talk about it, Jack. Question of the morning. How has your riding or driving evolved from when you first started? Audience, make sure you answer that question in the comments as well, because we're going to bring you into the conversation. We're listening, Jack. Don't hide nothing. Don't try to hide nothing from us now.
I mean, I do have my moments, but I'm a little bit more careful. I have to constantly look at my surroundings. I swear I avoid an accident like 3 times a day, and that's both on the bike and in the car. I feel a lot safer in the car. I hate being on the bike. If I could get rid of my bike, I will, because there's always somebody that's trying to, I feel like they're trying to bully me when they overtake. Like, I've had cars that will think it's their right of way and I have to stop, and I'm just like, do you see me? Like, do you see me? On East Broadway, somebody was coming down Sparling Hill and they didn't stop. They just kept coming. So the bike that was coming as well had to come onto my side of the road because I was trying to go up Sparling Hill. So I'm avoiding on East Broadway, but there's also a car in the far left lane, and I'm just like, So I am constantly trying to stay aware of my surroundings, and I drive a lot and ride a lot slower and safer. A lot. Of course, when you're younger, you want to see how fast you can get up the road and you're speeding with your friends. And now I look back and I'm like, wow, that is so dumb. That is so dangerous. Like, what were you thinking? Silly. But that's me.
So as a reminder, audience, we are answering this question this morning before we get into our conversation with the chairman of Bermuda's Road Safety Council, MP Dennis Lissa III. Let us know in the comments how your riding or driving has evolved from when you first got started. You don't have to tell us your age or how long ago that was. We're not doing that today. We do just want to know what lessons have you learned since you got started. So I see some comments coming in. Carlington Fleming says he didn't take as many risks on his bike. If he's late, he's late. And I agree with that.
Absolutely. I'd rather get there late than not
Yeah.
get there.
And good morning to you, Monica. Thank you for tuning in. Let us know in the comments how your driving or riding has evolved over time. You don't have to tell us when you first got started, but just let us know, like, what are some of the lessons you've learned since, first getting your first vehicle, whether it was a bike or a car. I know for me, I never got a bike. I did Project Ride at Berkeley, but I didn't get a bike. I only did it because at the time, they said it was easier for you to get your car license if you did Project Ride because you didn't have to do the written test again. So you could just do the driving test. So I was like, well, bet, because I don't want to have to come back and do the written, or I don't want to do the written part. And I feel like it was a little bit easier when you did it for the bike than it is for the car. I mean, I never did the written test for the car, so I don't know if it's a different test or if it's just the same test, and I just made that up.
I think it's the same test because I didn't take a written test when it came to driving. Not that I remember. Remember, it's been a long time. For me, I'm like, gosh, we did Project Ride when we were 15 before we went 16, and I'm 30, and I'm 32 now, going 33. So you guys could do the math, but that was a while ago.
It was
lots of
definitely
living in between.
So we have a comment here from Monica Dunstan. She says she has a lot more to lose at this age, so now she just cruises, and that's one of the things too, right? Because when you're younger, you do have this sense of invincibility, or you think you have this sense of invincibility, like, oh, that's not going to happen to me. And I think, which is one of the reasons why our conversation with MP Dennis Lister is going to be so important, is because we're seeing a lot of younger kids losing their lives on the road. They're not kids, children, younger people.
Yeah,
we're seeing a lot of young people losing their lives on our roads, and no fault either way, if it's their fault, someone else's fault on the road. It's just one of those tragic stories because some of it is avoidable. I mean, there are accidents that happen, right? We can't avoid everything. But
that's why they're accidents.
Exactly. But it is interesting because I know when I did Project Ride, I'm actually scared of bikes. Like, not from like I'll never get on a bike. I have a phobia of bikes. I just don't like bikes because they feel like you get into accidents on them more than you do in cars. And I feel like they definitely give me a little bit of like, I only get on certain people's bikes. Jackie's one of them.
And I ride like
bikes. We cruise. We definitely cruise. We're like living our best life.
I try to avoid the bumps, but I don't.
Yeah, so we'll do this real quick before we get into that comment from Carmen James. When Jack and I were coming back from our Crystal Cave / Swizzle / Bailey's excursion in Hamilton Parish, Jack went over every single something that she could find in the road. It felt like.
No, here's the funny part. I was trying to avoid the big one and was going into bigger ones. And I'm like, what is with these roads? Like, I'm like, Terry, I promise I'm trying to miss every pothole, every crack, every bump. I'm trying to miss them, but I just keep finding other ones. And I can't.
And if y'all remember that game, was it Minesweeper? It was like she would hit the wrong gray, and it just every single time she hit the wrong gray, and it was a bomb. We have this comment here from Carmen Mitchell Jens. Jack?
I will never get on a bike again. People in cars and bikes are crazy on the roads. Absolutely. And bikes, at least cars, if you get in an accident, majority of the time, the car takes the biggest, hit. On bikes, it's you and the bike. Most times it's more you than the bike.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like bikes as much, because I don't feel like I have that protection or that shield to kind of, at least the car can take the brunt of it. And that's not to say that you won't get a little bruise, that you might not get injured. But if the car takes the brunt of it, then whatever's left is kind of like, it's less than on a bike. It's literally like you hit the pavement. Like that idea and that just picture in my mind makes me like, no, thank you. I'll catch the ferry. It's okay. I will get there.
I'll walk.
I'll definitely walk. If you see me walk, I definitely get my steps in. I am not afraid to get my steps in. So shortly, we're going to bring in MP Dennis Lister III into our conversation so that we can talk to him about all things road safety. And I think just to give you guys a reminder and to let you all know that if you have any questions for MP Dennis Lister III, drop them in the comments. If there's anything that comes up in our conversation that you want to discuss further, drop that in the comments. If you want to give him a shout out, say good morning to him, whatever it is, do make sure you drop that into the comments, because I am going to bring you into the conversation. Chairman Lister, are you ready? Because I can see his screen in the background still. Okay, there we go. And so we'll bring him into the conversation now. Good morning, MP Lister.
Good morning. Good morning. How is everyone today?
Fantastic.
We are good.
That's
so
good.
We are super excited. We just got our audience ready for the conversation with you, we did ask them how their driving has evolved over time, over the years. So we want to ask you that question as we get into our conversation. Thinking back to when you first started on the road until now, how have you evolved as a rider or a driver? What are some of the lessons you've learned?
That's actually, before I answer the question, I'm actually just going to say that the question that you guys have is a very good question, because it actually ties into one of our biggest messages that we will be pushing throughout the rest of this year. But before I get into that, I will answer your question. And I want to say that myself personally, even before I became let me backtrack. I've been a member of the Road Safety Council since 2010, but I've been the chairman since 2018. So even before I was on the Road Safety Council, you see a change, how you progress over the years. As one of your commenters commented earlier, when they were younger, they were taking more risks. They were, you was more carefree. But as you get older, you mature, and you have to see, okay, overtaking, recklessly, you can do it when you're younger, but you have to mature as you get older. So that's how, and I know I'm not the only person, as there's other commenters said, they've seen things that as they got older, the risk is more of a risk, so you cut them out. So yes, I've changed my riding habits over the years from when I first got a bike to now. If I was to look back over 20 years I've had my bike license, the person that I was at 16, I probably wouldn't even recognize who I am now on a bike, because I did made different choices back then. But you grow older, you mature, and you learn how to do and be better riders or drivers on our roads.
Absolutely. And so we do want to ask you, can you share with our audience what the objective is of the Road Safety Council?
Well, the Road Safety Council, we do have a mission and a vision statement. Our mission statement is to educate the public with effective tools to reduce collisions and road fatalities. And our vision statement is to create a safer road culture that promotes positive driving and riding practices, creating smarter road users and saving lives. So it's all about educating, putting out their proper driving habits, proper driving behaviors, so that we as the public, you can pick up on them. And by you doing one small thing to help change or better your driving behaviors, if each one of us did that, that would help make our roads safer, because we're all doing something that affects every one of us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sticking along those lines, because I don't want to veer away, but we all can agree that when we were younger, we were reckless. And obviously, as we got older, we've matured, our riding has matured, everything like that. But then we see these younger riders, and I try to get through to them, but I have one in particular that I see, and I've actually pulled him over, taken his keys, and given him a lashing, because I tried to sit down and have the conversation on a mature level without the emotion. But the way he was riding, it actually triggered me, scared the crap out of me, and I'm just like, you know what? Like, do I have to take my belt off? Like, what do I have to do? And honestly, I need to know, like, what are some tactics that we can use to try and get through? Because instead of waiting until he gets in a bad accident, or our youth get in bad accidents, or mature, how do we cut that timeline? How do we get through to them now to practice safer riding?
Well, that is also a good question. As you mentioned earlier in your statement before, Terry, about Project Right. Project Right starts for those that are 15 and a half. You can apply, and we've seen that from the first. So when we do a lot of our breakdowns and demographics, I say the beginning riders, which I'd say 16 to 25, or beginning road users, those that are just getting on the road. Some people, as Terry said, they don't get a bike at 16 or 17. They get a car when they get maybe 18, 19, or 20. So your first time on the road could be a little later than a person that gets a bike at 16. But in that age category, 16 to 21, what we have seen, though, is that due to Project Right, those that are just coming out, they actually have, yes, as you mentioned, you do see a lot of young people or young people that do some reckless riding, but they actually, statistics have shown that they aren't the largest category of offenders on road or road traffic collisions.
Mm-hmm.
So the youngest group, they actually, because they're just getting out of Project Ride and what was taught to them, they actually, it's easier for them to remember at a young age coming out versus a person that can use myself as an example. I did Project Ride over 20 years ago when I was 16, so now it's what you learned then, you probably have forgotten. It's been so long. And also, as you get older or the longer you've been on the road, a lot of times people get set in their ways. You might have a bad habit that you might do. If you're not corrected early on, it just becomes a part of you. And that is one of the biggest issues of the road safety councils that we're learning, is that it comes down to person's personal responsibility or behavior on the roads. We can preach road safety all day, all long, as much as we want, but it's up to that person when they're on a bike or in their car for them to make personal choices, good personal choices, while they're driving on our roads. So, the young people, they actually, as I said, because they're fresh out of Project Ride, they are not the worst offenders. Yes, a lot of people like to highlight them and say, "Oh, but they're not the worst offenders." The actual age category that are the worst offenders is actually 60 and older category from the statistics that we have from last year. So young people, they take the brunt, but they actually, as I said, because they're just out of Project Ride, they actually are some of the better road behavior, drive better or ride better on the roads because they're fresh out of Project Ride.
So
that's
it's our
very
parents, that's the
interesting.
problem.
I was just about to say it's very interesting because we do know in other parts of our society, the older folks definitely are set in their ways. This is the way I've been driving since I was 16. So it's very difficult to have that conversation around that's actually not safe. And when you were 16, there were less cars. There were also horses and buggies. So you probably didn't have as many distractions on the road.
And that's actually a good point that, I actually didn't think about, is like you said, someone that got their license 25, 30, 35 years ago, as you said, there was less traffic on the road, so they can get away with different things that we can't do nowadays. And like you said, some people get set in what the ways and they're not willing to change. But to your question you asked is, how can we address that, is one of the mandates so the Road Safety Council, we are guided by the Road Safety Plan, Operation Caution. And in that plan, it's a mandate to educate, to actually have a curriculum in the school system. So that way, we can have a primary level curriculum, middle school, the middle schools we phased out, but primary and then secondary. And that way, you're getting the children at an early age. And and it's not just in road safety, but in anything. If you get the little children on board, they can then help get the parents on board. And an example is if a student, a young kid learns in school, or they learn something, okay, let's just say something simple, or you have to use your indicator when you turn. Let's say they're in the car with their parent, and the parent just slows down and turns and doesn't use the indicator. Little children, when they've been taught good ways or good behaviors, they'll point it out. Mommy, daddy, you didn't use your indicator. You're supposed to use your indicator before you turn. So little children or young children, if we can get them in the right behaviors at an early age, then they can have a knock-on effect with their parents. Like I said, they might have to call their parent out. Mom, speed limit's 35. You're doing 65. That's not right. And that's how we see in life. So if we can start young children early on these good behaviors, road safety behaviors, then they'll have a knock-on effect, not only in themselves. If they learn at 8, 9, 10 years old, by the time they do get on the roads at 16, 17, 18, they've already been ingrained in good driving behaviors. But also, like I said, they can call out their parents or older sibling or someone that's doing wrong and let them know that's not the correct way to do what they're doing.
I love it. I think that's so great. We actually have some questions around Project Ride that I want to bring into the conversation. So this first one is kind of like a question, but it's also like a little bit of slide. Okay. Monica Dunstan says, does Project Ride teach safe riding now? Because in my day, it just taught us how to ace the test. That's one part. And then the other part is, must all students do Project Ride to obtain a license?
Before I answer the questions, I will have to just say that Project Ride, it does not come under the Road Safety Council. It's a road safety office that the road safety officer controls Project Rise. So I can answer some of the questions, but if it's something a bit more detailed, I will have to maybe defer, and if I can always come back and bring an answer. But to the first question, if you can bring it up again, or can you read it again? Because I did forget it.
Sure, no problem. So does it teach safe riding now? Because in her day, it taught how to ace the test.
I would say yes, it does teach safe riding, but I will admit that I have not been attendant of road safety to see what they actually do. But it is I would say from 20 years ago when I did Project Ride, it is more detailed. They've improved, so they do offer or they do teach road safety more than just how to pass the test. So that's why, as I said, the statistics show that that fresh age group 16 to 21 just coming out of Project Ride is that they do have they are one of the lower offending age groups because they have learned how to ride safely on our roads.
That's awesome.
So earlier you were talking about statistics, and I was just wondering, I know we're only now 7 months into the year, but do you have statistics on this year's reported accidents, fatalities, and the ages and stuff?
Yes, I do.
I see you looking.
Yeah, I had to pull it up on my phone. So yeah, so we have up until June 26th of this month. That's how recent our statistics go. So what I can say is overall so far for up until June of 2021, we've had a total of 545 reported collisions. And actually, I do want to make one point. And in the beginning, when you two were talking, you were saying accidents. In the Road Safety Council or the Road Safety Arena, we do like to make a distinction between accidents and collisions, because accidents are avoidable. Collisions are things that are unavoidable. And so if people are driving and doing what they are supposed to be doing, focusing on the roads, and, actually you can avoid accidents. But if you're not, you're driving recklessly or driving without due care and caution, those how accidents happen, because a person, it's human error versus a collision. You can be doing everything right, and let's say a cat runs into the road and you swerve and you hit another car or something like that. So it's a difference between accidents, which are avoidable and preventable, and collisions. So back to the stats, like I said, so far for this year, it's 545 recorded collisions. And back to our point of age groups, I just want to read off a few stats for the age demographic. So out of the 545, the most recorded in the age group is 167, and that's for the over 60 demographic. The next demographic, 160 accidents, it's actually 21 to 30 years old demographic. And then the next is 151 with the 51 to 60 year demographic. So as you can see, the youngest, and so 16 to 20 is only had 95. So far for this year, that's the lowest recorded age demographic, the 16 to 20 year olds. So as I said, the statistics prove that the new road users have better driving behaviors or habits than the older crowd. And like I said, a lot of it could be attributed to the older crowd. If you got your license 30 years ago, in Bermuda, you don't have to renew, you don't have to go back to take a test, until you hit the age of 65. And then you have to do it every 5 years to 70. So between 18 or 16, when you got a bike license, to 65, you don't have to go and take a test again. So what you learned 25, 30 years ago, definitely there could be new driving behaviors, new driving standards since then. And so a lot of people, like I said, are set in their ways and don't realize, okay, maybe something they did 20 years ago isn't what they could do now. And so that's what can be attributed to the older demographic having more road collisions than the younger demographics.
So audience, who's talking to us, right? That's us. We need to do better.
When I
Yes.
heard this, I was like, okay, so shout out to Gen Z and the younger kids for actually riding and driving safer on our roads than those of us that are pointing and wagging our fingers at them, saying you should slow down. It's like, no, you should stop getting into collisions.
Look at the
Yep.
mirror. So my next question, it's obviously surrounding the weather today. So we know it's raining outside, and Bermuda's roads are despicable. I don't know if you heard the story about me trying to avoid a pothole and fall into a bigger
I
pothole.
heard it.
I avoid potholes every day, and of course today there's probably going to be a new one that pops up. Do you guys have, does government, whoever, have a plan to go through and fix the roads? Because I know on Harbor Road, you guys, of course they have the trenching, but they only fix what they trenched, which doesn't fix the road. So it just ends up being worse and worse and worse. And then of course we're getting into little
Yes.
collisions.
Well, it is. I live in Somerset and I have to go to town every day, so I totally get the condition of our roads. You know, you hit certain areas and it's like you're on a scrambling track for a good two minutes. But yes, what you see with the road trenching, as you see with in Warwick between Belmont and where's it to now, Khyber Pass.
Yeah.
The policy of government is that when utility companies, whether it be Belco, the water, Cablevision, whoever, when they do trenching, that they do have to pave the road back over to the state it was before. So that is the government policy. To say if it's being upheld or enforced, that's a different question, but that is government policy. And to the actual condition of the roads, yes, government does have a plan to address the road conditions and paving. I can give you a little insight as one of the areas, like I said, coming from Somerset to town, one of the worst areas is Riddles Bay Gate, all the way through to Spicelands, and you know, you come through the narrow walls and it's real.
Yes. Oh my God.
There's actually a plan which it's scheduled to, in the next, I want to say 18 months or so, that stretch of road to actually be repaved again. So for people that have to go that way every day, there is some relief coming. So government does have a plan to address different areas, but what I can say is that with everything in government, a lot of it is guided by funding and budgeting. So as an example is, at one point in time in the public works department, they would have enough asphalt where they had allotted, let's say, to do work on 10 to 12 kilometers of our road each year. But and that was maybe a decade ago. Over that time, because of budgeting and things, it has been reduced down to, I believe that maybe we have enough asphalt to do up to maybe 3 or 5 kilometers of road resurfacing, I would say in the recent budget. So government does have a plan. It's just always guided by funding and the resources to get that project or those projects done.
Now you're telling us, you're telling us how you have a plan to get in the school started at a younger age, but are you guys trying to work with insurance companies to do a rewards thing? If you draw, who has it in
a rewards program?
So before we get into that, so Sean Smith had actually brought this comment into the conversation. He said he was able to get a discount on his private car insurance because of his then job's driver's license. And me personally, I spent 7 years in Atlanta and I had Progressive. And so I had like a safe driver kind of like thing that I put in my car. And if I didn't get into any collisions, now I know the term, I didn't get into any collisions or accidents. And I, maintained a certain driving behaviors, like not going over the speed limit, because it can tell when you go over the speed limit. I got a discount back on my private car insurance. So yeah.
Well, that's actually a good question. In the past, I would say 18 to 24 months or so, we have at the Road Safety Council been having those discussions of having a good driving initiative or campaign. We haven't as yet gone out to the insurance industry, but we will in, I would say maybe in the next 6 months, just for that. Because in Bermuda, we all know insurance rates, if you do have to claim it, your premium goes up and can get high. And we always are see consequences for bad driving behaviors, but we don't see no benefits for good driving behaviors. So that is something that we are working on. And just as you guys mentioned, people that drive a year without having to claim with insurance, without anything, they should get some reward, whether it's a discount or whatever it is, but we will be working with the insurance industry to, create this initiative to help promote and incentivize for good driving in Bermuda.
That sounds awesome. So we actually have this comment here from Monica Dunshan. She says, I currently teach car/road safety to my students, P1 through 6. You'd be surprised how many parents don't have their little ones in seatbelts or car seats. And before we wrap up our conversation, can we talk about like that mandate or that law that says that we should be using seatbelts now? Because like I said, I spent 7 years in America and I came back home, and so I would always click my seatbelt and people was kind of looking at me like I was weird, and I'm like, well, I have to do that or I get a ticket. And then also in America, in Georgia specifically, there's a law against texting and driving. So if you're caught with your phone in your hand and they prove or they try to say that you were texting while you're driving, you could get a ticket. So can we just talk about like, how we've introduced some of those other, I guess, laws and policies to try to assist with our, better driving behavior, as well as being more attentive and focusing on the road?
Well, we actually don't have to introduce them because those are actually road traffic offenses already. You must wear a seatbelt when you're driving, and it is an offense to use whether it's a phone or any other type of electronic device. Just not specifically that, but it's also distracted driving. So anything that takes your attention away from driving is distracted. So there's laws already on the books. It comes down to enforcement. I know, as you're saying, overseas, when I'm away, you always hear the commercials or you see the billboards, click it or get a ticket. So it's driven home. That's something that the Road Safety Council, we also, as we do different highlights and different campaigns, what I can say is that is one that we will have to pick up on and to address that in Bermuda, because it is an all too prevalent an offense, people driving without their seatbelts on. So we will have to push it, and the public can look to see in the near future a campaign geared towards teaching people or reminding people to use their seatbelts, because it is against the law not to. And distracted driving, we had a campaign, I believe last year, targeted against distracted driving. Most people probably don't even think some of the things they do while they're driving are actually factors of distracted driving. And an example is, you're driving to work, you could be, some people have a morning coffee while they're driving, even fidgeting with the radio. If you have an old school turn dial radio, or you have to push, some of the new cars, everything's on the steering wheel. But if you have one, you have to reach across to press the buttons. All of those things, they distract you from your attention on the road. So they are considered distractions while you're driving. So as I said, a lot of people do them and don't even think about it. You can be having passengers or one or two passengers in your car and got caught up in a conversation. That is distracted driving. So we have to remember when we're driving that we always have to give 100% attention to the roads to avoid any accidents that can be preventable, or to be aware of your surroundings, because it could be a collision that isn't preventable, but if you're aware of it or paying attention, you might be able to reduce the damage, or you might be able to swerve around something. So those laws are on the books. We just have to enforce them. And also, as the Road Safety Council is, again, bring up a campaign for it to promote and address the seatbelt. And we can also do car seats in Bermuda. I can admit car seats, I don't have children, so I've never had to use a car seat, but there are different, the size and weight of a child, different ways. If it's in the front seat, it has to face one way. I mean, not in the front seat, in the back seat. So car seats are similar too. We just have to, again, promote it so that people can be educated on properly how to use them. And the enforcement side, the police, if they see these infractions, they have to, again, pull people over. It's no one wants to get a ticket, but sometimes you have to get a ticket to get the message out there. You know, if the police started ticketing 10 people and they got a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt, word of mouth spreads around and people, okay, you have to wear a seatbelt. The police are on the lookout for that. So education and enforcement are the tools to get, you know, the messages out and for people to take them, understand, and put those good behaviors into practice.
Thank you for that. So MP Lister, we appreciate your time this morning. And before you get up out of here, can you let us know how can those who maybe have any road safety issues or ideas to help with the education part of it, and they want to maybe discuss that with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, the Road Safety Council, we are always open to engaging, partnering with any community persons or, you know, just a single individual. We're always open to ideas and initiatives. In case of schools, we do presentations, or not just schools. If you're a community group or you're a business and you want us to come do a road safety presentation, we're always willing to come and do that. To reach out to us, we have an email. It's bdarsc@gmail.com, or you can call TCD 292-1271 and ask to speak to the road safety officer. And then, you know, she, as part of the Road Safety Council, she will relay that to me. So email, even Facebook. If you can reach out to us on Facebook, I believe it's Road Safety Council on Facebook, and on Instagram, Bermuda Road Safety Council. It's at Bermuda Road Safety Council on Instagram. So you can reach us on any one of those platforms. You can send a message, and one of us, either myself or another road safety member, will respond to you. And if it's a partnership, it's something that we're looking to do. We can have those conversations and see how we can bring forward an initiative.
Perfect. Thank you once again, MP Lister.
Thank you for having me, you guys. And before I close, as I always say, is for Bermuda to remember to drive safe, drive with care and caution, slow down, and don't drink and drive. That's all we can do to make Bermuda safer.
Awesome. Thank you.
You guys have a good day.
You too. I like that little plug. I see what you did there.
Smart, especially right on the weekend. Smart.
Exactly. Yes. All right, you guys. You have a good one.
See ya.
Toodles.
That was awesome. I am just like, there's some. I think I actually have more questions now than Jack. The first one, because I'm not a driver or a rider, I see a lot more. I'm obviously more observant. I can see when people are doing certain things, and some of the things that he talked about, like even starting younger and getting our kids involved, because they do check you. One thing about a kid, don't do something that you're not supposed to do in front of a kid, because they will let you know, you wasn't supposed to do that.
You told me we're supposed to indicate. Where's your indicator? And talking about indicators, I feel like people have something against them. Like, did the inventor do something and now we're boycotting? Like, what did I miss?
Now no one wants to use them. Let us know in the comments what you thought of the conversation with Chairman Lister. Also, make sure you give us some reactions online. Give us a like, a thumbs up, a heart. Jacky and I love the care reaction, so go ahead and give us a little care. Before we get into today's Feel Good Vibe of the Day, do remember that there is no daily hour today. There will be no new show live, but that is a perfect opportunity for you to catch up on any episodes that you may have missed this week or the previous weeks before they come back next week, Tuesday. Today's Feel Good Vibe is to celebrate some Bermudian success stories. The first two are two graduates from the Barclay Institute. As you know, Jacky and I both went to Barclay. This isn't intentional to only focus on Barclay. So if you do know any Cedar Bridge Academy graduates for 2021, do send us an email. I'll give you that email address a little bit later. So first, we want to shout out to Kyla Riley. She graduated from the Barclay Institute, as well as Nazara Bridgewater. Also, shout out to the whole class of 2021, whether it's Barclay, Cedar Bridge, any of the primary schools, any of the middle schools. Shout out to everyone who's a part, and Bermuda College. Shout out to everyone who's a member of 2021. And our third Bermudian success story is that the BILTR, which stands for Bermuda International Long-Term Insurance and Reassurance Scholarship Recipient, was Kaya or Sienna Burgess. Miss Burgess is set to attend the University of Leicester in the UK. So we do want to send her some love and support on her upcoming journey to education. Now, if you do know a Bermudian success story that is doing amazing things, please make sure you email us engage@gooddaybermuda.com for a chance for that person to be featured live during our show. As always, we hope that today's Feel Good Vibe of the day has you ready to make it a great one. I'm Terri Tuku alongside Jackie Lambert. We trust we'll see you next week, same time, same place. Until the next episode, peace and have a good day, Bermuda. I love how Jackie's
still here.
We're
Still
here. We're still here.
Have a good. Bleep, bleep, bleep.
Have a good one, everyone.